In the shadowed skies of World War II, not every mission was about dropping bombs. Some missions carried something far more delicate, far more dangerous: human lives, intelligence, and hope. Among the most daring of these was Operation Carpetbagger, a secret Allied program designed to deliver agents, weapons, and supplies to resistance forces behind enemy lines in occupied Europe. By 1943, the war had reached a turning point. The Allies were preparing for invasions, and resistance movements in France, Belgium, Italy, and the Balkans were growing. These groups, often operating in isolated cells, required support: radios to contact London, weapons to fight occupiers, and men trained in sabotage and intelligence gathering. But delivering these resources was fraught with danger. Airfields were hundreds of miles away, skies were patrolled by the Luftwaffe, and any misstep could cost the lives of both crew and agent. The aircraft chosen for these missions were modified bombers, often B-24 Liberators, stripped of unnecessary weight, painted black for night operations, and equipped with special containers to drop personnel and cargo from the sky. These were not high-altitude raids. They were low, precise, and silent. Flying in the darkness, guided by moonlight, flares, and faint signals from resistance forces below. Drop zones were marked by subtle signals, small fires, torches arranged in specific patterns, or flashes from coded lights. Timing was everything. Too early, and supplies could land in enemy hands. Too late, and the aircraft risked being detected or running out of fuel before returning to base. For the agents waiting below, the arrival of the Carpetbagger planes could mean the difference between survival and capture. Resistance fighters, often civilians turned warriors, relied heavily on these nighttime deliveries. Weapons provided by Carpetbagger missions were used to sabotage rail lines, derail trains, and disrupt supply chains. Radios allowed operatives to communicate with London, coordinating larger Allied efforts such as the D-Day invasion and subsequent uprisings. Every mission had the potential to shift the balance of power in a small but critical corner of the occupied continent. The crews themselves faced unique dangers. Flying low at night over enemy territory left no room for error. Engines could fail, flak could strike, and the silent forests below offered no protection if a plane was forced down. Every mission was a gamble with lives hanging in the balance, both those of the airmen and the resistance fighters they served. Yet, despite the risks, the crews of Operation Carpetbagger displayed remarkable courage and skill, executing hundreds of missions with precision and secrecy. Some of the most daring drops involved agents parachuting directly into enemy-held territory. The airmen had to ensure the drop was accurate, the agents landed safely, and supplies were distributed without alerting German patrols. Stories from these missions tell of parachutes entangling in trees, of men landing in swamps or on rooftops, and of crews circling above, waiting anxiously until signals confirmed the success of the drop. Operation Carpetbagger was more than a logistical operation. It was a lifeline of hope. Resistance movements, often isolated and facing brutal occupation forces, were able to maintain their fight because of the bravery of these crews. The missions demonstrated not only technical skill, but ingenuity. Pilots and navigators learned to adapt to unexpected obstacles, from poor weather to shifting drop zones, improvising under pressure to ensure their objectives were met. By 1944, Carpetbagger operations had expanded across France, Belgium, Italy, and even into the Balkans. The coordination between the RAF, USAF, and Special Operations Forces became increasingly sophisticated. Each successful mission reinforced the bond between the Allies and the resistance, showing that even in the darkest nights, help could arrive from the sky. The impact of Operation Carpetbagger cannot be overstated.
Supplies dropped in secret allowed resistance forces to carry out sabotage that delayed German reinforcements during critical campaigns. Agents parachuted in from these missions gathered intelligence that informed Allied planning for invasions and offensives. And above all, the missions symbolized a commitment that no group fighting against oppression would be left without support. In the end, the story of Carpetbagger is a story of courage, precision, and trust. It is about airmen who risked everything, not to destroy cities, but to protect lives and empower those who fought in silence. It is about ordinary men performing extraordinary feats in the service of freedom. And it is a reminder that some of the most decisive actions in war are not fought in broad daylight or on the front lines, but under the cloak of night, guided by skill, bravery, and unwavering resolve. Operation Carpetbagger remains one of the most remarkable examples of the secret side of aerial warfare in World War II, a campaign where bomber crews became lifelines of hope and where every successful drop could mean the difference between survival and defeat for the resistance forces of Europe. The true danger of Operation Carpetbagger missions lay in their secrecy. Unlike conventional bombing raids, these flights had no margin for error. Pilots could not rely on heavy formations for protection because stealth was more important than firepower. Flying low over enemy territory, often at less than a few thousand feet, meant that every tree, river, or ridge could become a hazard. Engines had to be quiet, lights extinguished, and navigation precise. A single miscalculation could mean capture or death for both aircrew and the agents below. Weather posed another formidable challenge. Fog, rain, and turbulent winds could obscure drop zones, sending parachuting agents off course or forcing supplies to land in inaccessible locations. Pilots and navigators had to adjust mid-flight, sometimes improvising entire routes in darkness to reach their objectives. The men flying these missions became masters of improvisation, combining technical skill with nerves of steel. Not every mission went smoothly. Some drops went tragically wrong. Supplies landed in enemy-held fields, parachutes tangled in trees, and agents were forced to hide until they could continue their mission. Yet even these setbacks did not deter the crews. Each failed attempt taught them how to improve navigation, timing, and coordination for future operations.
The agents themselves were ordinary men and women thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Parachuting into occupied Europe required courage beyond measure. They carried critical intelligence, weapons, and radios, relying entirely on the skill of the carpetbagger crews to get them to safety. These operatives would later become saboteurs, spies, and liaisons, forming the backbone of the resistance networks that would play crucial roles in campaigns such as D-Day and Operation Market Garden. Every successful drop strengthened the bond between the aircrews and the resistance. Ground teams would signal with torches, lanterns, or coded flashes to confirm successful deliveries. Pilots often circled above, waiting for signals of success, aware that failure could lead to disaster for the men and women on the ground. These moments required patience, calm under pressure, and absolute trust in both human skill and machine reliability. The technology used in carpetbagger missions was equally remarkable. Aircraft were modified to carry specialized containers for supplies, sometimes equipped with parachutes to ensure soft landings. Navigational instruments were adapted for low-level night flying, and crews learned to read subtle landscape cues to locate hidden drop zones. Every piece of equipment and every calculation was crucial. There was no margin for error in these secret operations. By 1944, carpetbagger operations had expanded significantly. Bases in southern England became hubs of clandestine activity, with crews and aircraft trained specifically for night operations over France, Belgium, Italy, and the Balkans. The missions became more sophisticated, often involving multiple aircraft coordinating simultaneous drops across a wide area. Each mission contributed not just supplies, but intelligence, sabotage potential, and moral support for resistance fighters operating in enemy territory. The psychological pressure on aircrew was immense. Flying through hostile skies in near silence, knowing that detection could lead to immediate death or capture, required extraordinary composure. Yet, despite the danger, morale among crews remained high.
fueled by the knowledge that their work had a direct impact on the success of Allied operations and the survival of courageous men and women fighting for freedom behind enemy lines. Operation Carpetbagger demonstrated a side of aerial warfare rarely seen in history books. It was not about mass destruction or industrial targets. It was about precision, courage, and human ingenuity. The missions were a lifeline to resistance networks, a bridge across enemy lines, and a testament to the versatility and daring of Allied air forces. Even today, the legacy of these secret missions resonates. The bravery of air crews who flew into darkness, the resilience of agents risking everything on the ground, and the success of coordinated efforts to support occupied Europe remain examples of extraordinary courage and ingenuity in wartime. As the war approached its final phases, Operation Carpetbagger reached its peak. Crews flew night after night, delivering men, radios, weapons, and sabotage equipment deep into enemy-held territory. Each flight carried the weight of enormous responsibility. Every crate of supplies could empower a cell of resistance fighters to destroy rail lines, ambush convoys, or relay intelligence that might save thousands of lives during upcoming Allied operations. Some of the most daring missions involved high-risk landings or multiple aircraft coordinating simultaneous drops over separate zones. Pilots would carefully time their runs to avoid detection, while navigators calculated exact altitudes and wind drift to ensure parachutes delivered their precious cargo safely. Agents parachuting from the planes often carried documents or codebooks vital to intelligence networks. Their survival depended entirely on the skill of the aircrews above. The success of these missions had tangible effects. Resistance groups became more effective and confident, carrying out sabotage that delayed German reinforcements, disrupted communications, and hampered logistics during critical campaigns such as the D-Day invasion. Every delivery, no matter how small, had strategic significance. For the first time, air power was not just a tool of destruction, but a lifeline of hope, directly influencing operations on the ground in occupied Europe. The risks were constant and deadly. Flak, night fighters, and the ever-present danger of navigational error claimed aircraft and crews. Yet, the men and women of Operation Carpetbagger persevered, driven by a combination of skill, courage, and the knowledge that their work mattered profoundly. For the agents on the ground, these missions were sometimes the difference between life and death, success and capture, freedom and imprisonment. One of the defining aspects of Operation Carpetbagger was its secrecy. Few knew the full scope of the missions at the time. The work of these airmen remained classified long after the war, their heroism unsung in public history. Yet their impact was undeniable. Resistance networks became well-armed and coordinated, intelligence flowed reliably to Allied command, and sabotage missions increased in scale and effectiveness. By late 1944, the legacy of Carpetbagger missions was clear. The program had demonstrated that precision, courage, and ingenuity could extend the reach of air power beyond bombing and reconnaissance. Aircraft became more than tools of destruction. They were enablers of resistance, carriers of hope, and instruments of liberation. The Allies had created a bridge across enemy lines, uniting aircrew and resistance fighters in a common cause. In retrospect, Operation Carpetbagger stands as one of the most remarkable examples of secret warfare during World War II. It required unparalleled bravery from both aircrew and agents on the ground. It demanded meticulous planning, precision flying, and nerves of steel. And it succeeded not through sheer force, but through ingenuity, coordination, and the unwavering belief that even in occupied lands, freedom could be delivered from the skies. The story of Operation Carpetbagger is ultimately a story of courage and hope. It is about men and women who risked everything, operating in darkness against impossible odds to support those fighting oppression from within. It is a testament to the ingenuity of Allied strategy and the extraordinary human spirit that made such missions possible. Though largely forgotten in popular history, the legacy of Carpetbagger endures. Every successful drop, every agent delivered, and every supply crate parachuted into enemy territory contributed to the liberation of Europe. It was a campaign waged in silence, yet its impact echoed loudly across the continent. Operation Carpetbagger reminds us that war is not only fought with bombs and bullets, but also with courage, precision, and the determination to give hope to those who fight against tyranny. The skies over occupied Europe became a silent battlefield where ordinary airmen performed extraordinary deeds, and where every mission carried the weight of freedom itself. In the end, the story of Carpetbagger is a story of connection between sky and ground, between aircrew and agent, between strategy and human courage. It is a chapter of World War II that illustrates the profound impact of stealth, skill, and sacrifice. And it is a story that deserves to be remembered.